श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम्। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां भिषजे पौरोगणां निधे सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्ते नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नमो धर्माय महते नमः कृष्णाय वेदसे ब्राह्मणेभ्यो नमस्कृत्य धर्मान् वक्ष्यामि शाश्वताम्। नमो भगवते तस्मै व्यासाय मततेजसे प्रसादात् वक्ष्यामि नारायणकथाभिमाम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं गरुडालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। So previously we concluded Drona Parva, and from today we will start looking at the Karna Parva. So what happens after Drona's death and 15th day battle, what happens? We'll look at that from today onwards. So Pandavas, Vaishampayana says that after Drona has been killed, the Kaurava army headed by Duryodhana, they were all filled with great anxiety. They went to Ashwatthama and they were lamenting on loss of Drona, and they were deprived of their energy in consequence of their grief and cheerlessness, sadness they had in their hearts. They sat around Ashwatthama, who was afflicted with grief of losing his father in that battlefield. So they all comforted him for a little while with various consideration, various things based on the Shastras. They said, okay, death everybody gets, and those kind of things. They said based on the Shastras, and also he attained Brahmaloka and all those kind of things. They said from Shastras, they tried to console him. And when the night came, they all proceeded to their respective tents, and all of them, all those kings and everybody assembled there. They could find no happiness. They could get no sleep. So they were struggling to find. So like this, Vaishampayana continues his narration, and I hope you remember who Vaishampayana is. So just to recap, remember, Vaishampayana is Vyasa's Shishya. He is the one who narrated Mahabharata first time to the world. So he is the one who narrated on when Janamejaya inquires him after the Sarpasatra, snake sacrifice. He asked Vaishampayana, how did my ancestors battled and how all those things. At that time, Vaishampayana narrates it. So Vaishampayana learned it from Vyasa and he narrates it to Janamejaya. And listening to all that again and also learning from Vyasa himself, Suta Mahamuni comes to Naimisha forest and he narrates that to the wider public, right? All the Brahmanas, Rishis, everyone assembled in Naimisha forest, Suta Mahamuni narrates it. So from that, everybody got to know about this Mahabharata story as written by Vyasa. So Vaishampayana here says, when he says, we say that Vaishampayana continued. So that means Vaishampayana is now continuing his narration to Janamejaya. So Janamejaya again is Parikshita's son. Parikshita is Abhimanyu's son and Abhimanyu is Arjuna's son. I'm not going to beyond that because hopefully you know by now who Arjuna is. So we will continue from there. So Vaishampayana continues. He says that those kings who returned to their tent, they could not get any sleep. They found no happiness and they were struggling to find any sleep or peace in their mind. So Karna, Duryodhana, Dushasana, Shakuni, in special, they could not compose themselves to sleep. All those four in that night together in Duryodhana's tent, they spent the night reflecting upon the woes they had inflicted on the Pandavas, the troubles they caused to Pandavas all these years. They started reflecting on those things. They previously brought Draupadi and they plunged into woe. Those Pandavas, they pushed those Pandavas into a lot of difficulties in that match of dice. In that dice came into the assembly, they dragged Draupadi into that, And recollecting all those things they have done, they experience great regret in their hearts and they filled with anxiety. So this is again, even though Duryodhana, Karna, Shakuni, all these previously proudly said they did all those things, now they started to realize as the battle started going wrong direction, they started losing all their warriors. First Bhima, then Drona, and many others lost. Right. So Duryodhana's brothers, many of them have been already dead. So Karna lost his sons and brothers and things like that. So people are losing all their people surrounding them. All of them are dying. They started feeling this and thinking about all the things they did to Pandavas. They started regretting all those things they did. These four in Duryodhana's tent. When they were that night they assembled, thinking all those sufferings they inflicted upon Pandavas. They in consequence of that gambling match, that dice match they played, they passed that night in sorrow, as it were. They felt like that night, one night felt for them felt like 100 years. They could not get any sleep, and they were always thinking why we did that, why we did that. If we did not do that, we did not have to come to this situation, and things like that. They were thinking all those Karna, Duryodhana, Dushyasana, and Shakuni in Duryodhana's tent. So they spent like that, and when the morning came, again they again observing their duties. They went through their morning sandhya and all the customary rites they had to perform. And after going through that, again one more thing here, just remember these people they are in battlefield and their relatives and everybody is getting killed almost every day, right? Normally when a relative or anybody family member dies, there is sutaka. You don't do sandhya or sandhya. There are special rules on how sandhya is performed, things like that. But these they continued because shastra says that when someone dies in a battlefield, there is no sutaka. Okay, this Ashoka period normally observed for 10 days for Brahmanas and things like that, Kshatriyas, uh, additional 2 days and things like that. Those things do not apply if someone dies in the battlefield. And there are some other exceptions as well, but battlefield death is one thing. So because these people have died in the battlefield, there is no such thing and they can continue. Again, Sandhya is something that's performed even when there is Sutaka with some variations. So these people, Duryodhana and everybody, Kauravas, they performed their morning rites, and having gone through their all those morning customary rites, and they comforted to some extent. They ordered their troops to be arrayed and prepared for the battle again. And they made Karna their commander in chief. They made him generalissimo. They made him the chief of the command. And by tying auspicious thread around his wrist, so like again a kankana like this, they tie on the thread. You've probably seen in the weddings, marriages, and all the auspicious ceremonies. The thread is tied on the wrist. So like that, they tied that thread on Karna's wrist, and then they made the Brahmanas bless him, and they gave all the gifts to Brahmanas, and then they presented vessels of curd, ghee, akshata, gold coin, cows, jewels, gems, and costly robes, and all these things they presented to those Brahmanas, and then again for praying for their victory. And then they caused heralds, musicians, and various other things to be sung out in praise of Karna. So, like this, they again tried to get their strength back, mental strength back on to prepare for the next day's battle, the 16th day's battle. They prepared like that. The Pandavas also, having gone through their morning rites, they issued from their camp, then commenced a fierce battle and making again between the Kauravas and Pandavas, great battle takes place, each of them desiring to defeat one another. During that commandership of Karna, the battle took place between the Kauravas and Pandavas, which was very exceedingly fierce. And Vaishampana says that that lasted for 2 days. And when Karna's another name is Vrisha, and when Vrisha made immense slaughter of those enemies in the battle, at last he was killed uh, in front of the Dhritarashtra's by Arjuna. So he was killed after 2 days of battle by Arjuna. Then Sanjaya, er, coming to Hastinapura, told Dhritarashtra all that had happened in that Kurukshetra. So Vaishampana tells Janamejaya all this, that this battle of Karna becoming the chief and then battling for 2 days. He dies. He was killed by in front of Duryodhana and others. He was killed by Arjuna, and then after that Sanjaya returns to Hastinapura. So listening to this, Janamejaya asks Vaishampana. He says that having heard the fall of Bhishma and also the death of Drona, the old Kuru king Dhritarashtra, he must have been afflicted with great grief. How can he plunged into such a grief support his life, having heard the death of Karna as well, who was always the well-wisher of Duryodhana? So how did Dhritarashtra survive after hearing the death of Karna, who was always looking for Duryodhana's best? And how could that Dhritarashtra support his life when he all his hopes were rested on Karna gaining the victory for his son? So when seeing that Dhritarashtra did not give up his life on hearing Karna's death, I think that it is very difficult to give up life under any circumstances just because of grief. Janamejaya says that when Dhritarashtra did not yield up his life after hearing the fall of Shantanu's son and that is Bhishma, and then death of Balika, of Drona, of Somadatta, Bhurishrava, and many other friends, and his sons, grandsons, all of them, when he heard about their death and still his life did not leave his body, I think it is very difficult to give up life. So it is very difficult to die. Even one wishes to die, it's probably is very difficult to die. But oh Vaishampayana, oh great Rishi, tell me all those things that actually happened in detail. I am not satisfied. I'm not content with hearing the great achievements of my ancestors. I want to hear more. Tell me all those things. So, like this, Janamejaya once more inquires Vaishampana. So again, Vaishampana narrates the entire 2 days battle in about 5 sentences. He says that Karna was made commander in chief. Pandavas prepared. The battle took place. Great battle. It lasted 2 days. Karna destroyed a lot of enemies, but at last he was killed by Arjuna. Dun dun dun. So that's 2 days narration by Vaishampayana. This is again important because when somebody is in every Purana, Mahabharata, Ramayana, wherever you look, normally it is not always somebody gives a summary of what it is. And then whether it is narrating about the Shastras or stories or whatever it is, they won't tell full in detail. When somebody asks, tell me about what happened between Arjuna and Karna, they will say, yeah, they had great battle and Arjuna killed Karna. Okay, that's all. This is just to see how much the person who is actually asking a question, they are interested. If they are interested, they will start asking more and more and more questions. If they are not interested, they will just listen. Oh, okay, Arjuna killed Karna. Good, thank you. I know all these things. Okay, so they will just walk away. So if that is the case, the teacher, the guru, or in this case Vaishampana here, who is explaining, narrating these things, he will just say, that's all you deserve because you are not interested. Go away. Okay, so he just says that Karna battled 2 days and he died. He was killed by Arjuna. So that's all you know. But Janamejaya here, like a good student, he asks more and more questions. He says that I'm not happy. You just telling me by 2 sentences, in 2 sentences, that Karna has been killed by Arjuna. I'm not happy about that. Tell me in detail. I want to know everything. Actually, what happened? I want to know everything. Tell me all those things. He shows that curiosity. He shows that eagerness to learn and hear from Vaishampayana, and that's why Vaishampayana continues. And this is you see in everywhere, whether it is in the Dharma Shastras or Puranas or anything you see. Shastras always like that. That's why again Shastras clearly say that if someone knows something, they should not tell that directly to everybody in detail. Only if the other person is interested, you should tell. So that's what here is also happening. And it continues. So there is always a question and answer, somebody asking and somebody responding. And if the person who is asking is more interested, then the answers become more and more interested and more in depth. Otherwise, you will just hear, tell me Mahabharata, they will say that, yeah, there is Kauravas and Pandavas, they had a battle and that battle lasted 18 days, Pandavas won, happy days. Okay, so that's Mahabharata. So for person who is not interested, who just heard about Mahabharata and want to know, that's sufficient. But somebody who want to know in detail, then they will start asking question, who are Pandavas, how they were born, how the Kauravas were. Just like what we saw in the Adi Parva, all these stories that started, right? Mahabharata, if you go to Adi Parva, the first 3-4 chapters, you summarized everything. And then Sudha was again asked in detail, and he explained that in about 10 chapters, 10 adhyayas. And then again, he was asked for more details as Janamejaya did, and then it went to very detailed explanation. So that's what's happening here as well. So coming back to the story, Janamejaya asked this question, please tell me in more detail, and Vaishampayana continues his narration. He says that when Karna was killed, Karna died, the son of Gavalgana, so that is Sanjaya, with a cheerless heart, he set out to Nagapura. Nagapura is another name for Hastinapura. He comes to Nagapura on the horses, which had a speed of like a wind, so they were very fast running horses. So he comes to Hastinapura, arriving at there, his heart filled with deep anxiety. He proceeded directly to Dhritarashtra's abode. And that Dhritarashtra's abode, Vaishampayana says that it was no longer teamed with kinsmen and friends. There were no relatives or friends surrounding Dhritarashtra's abode at that time, because all the people either in battlefield are already dead, or those who are surviving, they are already grieving for their loss. So that's why there was no celebration like you are entering a palace and you are going to king's abode. It is not, nothing was there. It was very dull. It was very grief-stricken place. So Sanjay enters such a place, and seeing king who was deprived of all the energy by the grief, Sanjay joins his hand and he worships him, and he bends down his head and at the monarch's feet. And then, after duly worshipping Dhritarashtra, he says that in explanation of woe, and he says that I am Sanjaya. O king, are you not happy? I hope you are not stupefied, you are not confused, having your son, your own faults, fallen into such a distress. So, with your own faults, you have fallen into such a distress now. O king, hope you are not confused by all these things. The counsels you had from your good people, uttered by Vidura, Bhishma, and Krishna, you had all those counsels. And I hope you don't feel any pain now remembering the rejection of those counsels. The counsel you also had from which were good in the assembly by Rama, Narada, Karna, and others. So again, if you remember Udyoga Parva, beginning of Udyoga Parva, Parashurama, Narada, Karna, all of them went to Hastinapura just when Krishna was coming. At that time, they went there and they told all the stories, and we heard about many stories at that time from Narada, Ram, Parashurama, and Karna, and various others at that time, telling Duryodhana not to go in this path. But he did not listen, and Sanjay reminds that, saying that all those counsels were good as well, he heard. But I hope you feel no pain now remembering the rejection of those people who gave you those such a good suggestions and counsels. I hope you feel no pain remembering the slaughter in the battle of by the enemy of Bhishma, Drona, and others. Those friends that were engaged in your good, all of them are being killed. I hope you feel no pain. Like this, Sanjaya says that I am Sanjaya. I hope you're not suffering from grief. I hope you are not feeling no pain, because it is all because of your fault. Like this, Sanjaya says. And then when Sanjaya was joined hands, he was telling like that. Dhritarashtra was afflicted with grief. he, drawing a long and hot breath, he says that hearing the fall of heroic son of Ganga, Bhishma, that warrior uh, uh, of all these divine weapons he had in him, and also the fall of the great bowman Drona, my heart feels great pain. And that hero is that who is born of the Vasus themselves. He killed every day 10,000 ratis who were clad in mail, and he was that Bhishma to whom Bhrugu's son, that is Parashurama himself, or Brahaspati himself, Parashurama himself gave the highest weapon when he was in childhood, and he has been trained by Rama himself and Brahaspati himself, and he has been killed by Drupada's son Shikandini, protected by the Pandavas. At this, my heart greatly pained, Sanjaya. You asked me whether my heart pains. My heart pained a lot when I heard about Bhishma's death. And that hero who was the grace, because of his grace only, those Kunti's sons have uh, actually conquered this entire earth. Because of his grace only, those they became Maharathis, and that bowman of great aim, Drona, who was killed by Drishtadyumna, my heart, when I heard about that, my heart is, because of that, is exceedingly pained as well. And those two who had not in this world a person equal to them, both Bhishma and Drona, in terms of knowing all the knowledge of their weapons and hearing the slaughter of these two, Bhishma and Drona, in the battle, my heart is exceedingly pained, Sanjaya. You asked me whether I'm pained. I am exceedingly pained. And that warrior who had not in three worlds, who was equal to any knowledge of the weapons, that slaughter of that Drona, after his slaughter, what did my people do? What did my side people do? Because Dhritarashtra, if you remember, he does not know. At the end of Drona's death, on the 15th day, Sanjaya comes and he narrates about Drona's death, and he goes back to Kurukshetra. And then the 2 days battle takes place and Sanjaya returns again. So this is a kind of Sanjaya coming to Hastinapura is kind of becoming a ill omen for Dhritarashtra, because first time when he came back from Kurukshetra, he told about Bhishma's death at the end of 10th day. And then he comes back at the end of 15th day, he talks about Drona's death and narrates everything which we saw in Drona Parva. And then now he comes and again, so Dhritarashtra asks him, after Drona's death, what did my people do? When that Arjuna, exerting himself with great strength, he killed those Samshaptakas and Narayana Sena, and the Narayana weapon itself was baffled, which was released by Ashwatthama, was baffled. After the Kaurava division, which has been started running away from Arjuna, what did my people do? I think that after Drona's death, my troops were flying away and they were struggling like a shipwreck stuck under deep ocean. They were like struggling like that. They had no escape route. What became the color of the faces of Duryodhana, Karna, Kritavarma, Kritavarma, Shalya, and my remaining sons and others in this Kuru division who were running away? How did they look? What did they feel? Tell me all this truly. What happened, Sanjaya, in that battle after Drona's death? Tell me all those things like this. Dhritarashtra asks. Sanjaya says that, oh sir, oh father, like he's giving respect to Dhritarashtra. He says that hearing all that happened to Kauravas through your fault, you should not feel any anguish now. So I'm going to narrate you all that. You should not feel any more grief or any more anguish because of what I'm going to tell you. And Sanjay says that yasmad abhavi bhavi va bhaved artho naram prati aprapto tasya va prapto na kaschid vedade buddha. He says that the one that is wise never feels any pain at what destiny brings. And since destiny is unconquerable, human purposes may or may not become attainable. And hence, the one who that is wise never feels any pain on acquisition or loss of the objects he cherished by him. So Sanjaya says that you should not feel because prarabdha, whatever that's going to happen is going to happen. Don't feel any pain because of that. Whether you gain something, do not feel happy. And if you lose something, do not feel happy, sad because of losing something. So, whatever one, your purpose, whatever you try to do, you may or may not become successful in attaining those things. It is all because of prarabdha. Sanjay just responds when he asks, Dhritarashtra asks what happened after Drona's death. All he says is, do not feel any more anguish. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And Dhritarashtra says, I don't feel great pain. Sanjaya, tell me, I regard all this result that's happening, I happened up to now, is because of the destiny, is because of the prarabdha. Tell me all that, what you want to tell. Tell me, don't hesitate. Again, Sanjay is worried what's going to happen to his king if he tells all those things. So he hesitates, says that make yourself strong. So again, we see it's right. If something bad happens, we'd say that, okay, we don't directly go and tell some bad news. We say, okay, make yourself strong and all those kind of things, and then gradually we tell the story. It is like that as well. So Sanjay says that when Dhritarashtra says, I am feeling not, I'm ready to listen, tell me. Sanjay says that when Drona was killed, when he was death, when he died, your sons, that is, he is telling Dhritarashtra, your sons Duryodhana and others, they become very pale, they become deprived of their senses, and armed with weapons, all of them hung their head down and afflicted with grief without looking at one another because of shame. They stood perfectly silent, looking at them with such afflicted faces. Your troops again themselves, they were very much worried. They were suffering from grief. They vacantly, your troops started looking upwards. They did not know what to do. They were just looking up in the sky, thinking what to do next. And seeing Drona killed in that battle, the weapons of many of them they had, it was covered in blood. Those weapons dropped from their hands. They were afraid to continue battling, and large number of weapons again still retained in the some of the soldiers' hands, but still they were still struggling to continue the battle. Then Duryodhana, seeing that army of Kauravas standing paralyzed and lifeless like that, he tells them that relying upon the strength of your army, I have summoned the Pandavas. Relying upon your strength, I have challenged Pandavas for this passage of arms, this exchange of arms and weapons in this battlefield. And when Drona has died. However, the prospect there is you should not be cheerless because of that. Those who come to the battlefield, they either die or they attain the heaven. The victory or death is certain in this battlefield. What strange is going to would have happened for Drona as well. So Drona also either have to meet the death or he had to attain the heaven. So that's why don't hesitate, don't be cheerless, fight uh, towards that every direction, go in every direction and fight. See that Karna, the son of Surya, that great bowman of great strength, is moving in this battlefield using his divine weapons, celestial weapons in this battlefield. Through the fear of that warrior, that Karna, the coward Arjuna is running away. He's turning his back like a small deer in front of a lion running away, like that. Arjuna is running away. Do not hesitate. Bhima as well, who has the strength of 10,000 elephants, has been defeated by this Karna. And through this Karna, through that great weapon he had from Indra, he killed Gatotkacha, who could have created thousands of illusions, and he destroyed that Gatotkacha as well. See that today this Karna is going to destroy the Pandava army. Let the Pandavas see today the strength of Ashwatthama, Karna, who battle like Vishnu and Indra together battling like that. They will battle these Pandavas. All of you singly able to kill and destroy these Pandava troops. So what more we can say when we still, all of us still alive? Why you are worried about this? So take up your weapons, engage in the battle. So like this, Duryodhana tries to encourage his troops, and hearing this, Sanjay says that having said these words, Duryodhana with his brother, he made Karna the commander of the Kuru army, and obtaining that command, Karna uh, so fierce in the battle, they uttered a loud roars and fought with the great enemy Pandavas. And Karna caused a great carnage of Sanjayas, Panchalas, Kekayas, Videhas. He destroyed a large amount of troops, and from his bow, large number of arrows issued in a continuous line, and they all of them like a behind the wings of one another, they came, those arrows, like a flight of bees. They came in large numbers, having afflicted Panchalas and the Pandavas with great activity, and having killed thousands of warriors. At last, Karna was killed by Arjuna. So Sanjaya gives that news to Dhritarashtra now, saying that at last, after battling like that, Sanjaya says that Karna was killed by Arjuna. So Vaishampayana narrating this says that hearing this news, Dhritarashtra feeling great pain in his uh, heart, he thinks that Duryodhana is already dead. If Karna is dead, there is no hope for Duryodhana. And exceedingly agitated, he falls down on the earth like a elephant deprived of the sense falling down. He falls down on the earth. When king falls down, he faints, loses his sense and swoons away. At that time, loud roar, everybody started. Now a loud noise came about. All the ladies of the house, they all became exceedingly agitated. They were scorched by the grief. They wept aloud, and approaching Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and other ladies of the household, they all fell down on the earth, deprived of their own senses. They all thought Dhritarashtra died, hearing this death of Karna. So then Sanjaya began to comfort all those ladies stricken with grief. They were bathed in tears and they were reft of consciousness. Sanjaya began to comfort, and comforted by Sanjaya, those ladies again began to tremble repeatedly, like a plantain grew in the wind, uh, hit by the wind. They were shaking all over. Vidura also sprinkling water on Dhritarashtra, uh, began to comfort him with wise words of his own, and Dhritarashtra slowly restored to consciousness and understanding that the ladies of the household were there. He remained silently, perfectly silent for some time, like one bereft of any reason. He remained silently. Again, the great thing is that even though Dhritarashtra is losing his senses and he is fainting, when he wakes up, he looks at all the ladies around, all the women of the house around, and he is the king. He did not want to feel like, oh, the king has fainted. My husband is not strong, or something like that, or my husband or my king is not strong like that. Hey, ladies should not think, right? So when he when he regains his consciousness, he sits, looks around, and all the ladies were there. They were all shaking and they were all worried for him. He just sits there, remains perfectly silent for some time, uh, regain his composure and not acting like he is also very much worried, and he actually had so much pain in him. He's kind of put a tried to put a brave face. And having reflected for some time, then repeatedly drawing long breaths, he uh, censures his own sons, Duryodhana and others, and applauds the Pandavas. He now had to say something in front of all those ladies and everybody, a woman of the household. He says that his son was bad one and Pandavas were good, and censoring also his own intelligence and of Shakuni. He reflected for a long time and once again began to tremble repeatedly. And controlling his mind once more, the king asks Sanjaya with great fortitude, he asks Sanjaya once more. He says that I have heard, O Sanjaya, that what you said, my is my son Duryodhana, who is always desiring victory, has already gone to Yama's place. Is he already dead? Is my son already dead? That's what Duryodhana's question is when he hears about Karna's death. And even if you will have to repeat it, tell me truly what has happened. Tell me all those things. Is my son Duryodhana dead? And Vaishampayana says that when he was addressed like that by the king, Sanjaya says that the great Maharati uh, Vaikartana, that is Karna, has been killed with his sons and brothers, and also all the Suta warriors that came with Karna, all of them great bowmen, all of them have been died in this battlefield. Dushasana also has been killed by that great son of Pandu. Indeed, his blood has been, from anger, has been drunk by Bhima in that battlefield. Yes, says two news here. So the first one is Karna with his sons and brothers, and also all the Suta warriors that came with Karna. All of them have been killed. And second shocking news, second sad news is Dushasana has been killed by Bhima, and Bhima has drunk Dushasana's blood. So Sanjay gives those two news, and the he says that uh, uh, he's been killed by Bhima. And hearing those words, Dhritarashtra again, with heart once more agitated, he addresses Sanjaya, saying that through the evil policy of my son, who has little foresight, Karna has been killed. Intelligence, this intelligence, whatever the news you are giving me, is cutting very core in my heart. I am desire of desiring to cross this sea of grief, remove all my doubts, therefore telling me who is still alive and who is dead among the Kurus and Pandavas. So Dhritarashtra is kind of now given up. So he's kind of now says, if you are telling me Karna is dead, the Shasana is dead, there is probably more news than what you have just told me. Clear all my doubts. Tell me who is dead among my side, who is lives on, and who is dead on the Pandava side and who lives on the Pandava side. Just tell me the names because up to now you said who's died. Now tell me who lives because that may be the easier. So he asks like that, and Sanjaya starts responding to that query, and we will look at that because there is a big list of names Sanjaya goes through, and we will look at that next time when we gather.